Hey guys, it's Buddhagem, and you're watching another edition of Buddhagem's Mailbox. And today's question comes from Guimarquito. He's been watching a lot of videos about anarchy, says he pretty much likes it, but he's got some questions. He asks essentially 3 questions, so let's dive into it, see if we have enough time to answer all 3 of them. Number 1, does anarchy oppose small business and small marketeers? I mean, if we want to have some variation, we have got to allow some of those or not. And if those small businesses wouldn't have any hierarchy inside them, how would the person who started them be rewarded, or would he?
This is actually a pretty common topic in anti-capitalist circles, the role of the small business owner, the petty bourgeois. And first off, I'd like to say that, just the focus at this point certainly is the global behemoths of, capitalism, the Fortune 500, the giant multinational corporations that are destroying ecosystems as we speak, ruining people's lives, quite frankly, bankrupting this country. That's the focus at this point. I don't see a lot of actions aimed at small business. But in regards to that, we have to ask ourselves, who is the petty bourgeois? It's someone who's either self-employed, works with members of his or her family, has a handful of employees, a shopkeeper. The petty bourgeois may hold the title to a store, but the bank holds the mortgage. The petty bourgeois may or may not like neo-globalization and may grumble about the injustice of monopoly capitalism, but it's only a complaint about a particular organization of capitalism. The petty bourgeois is still a capitalist, relying on the exchange of commodities for a profit, however small. In Marxist slang, this, represents a certain mindset, and it's something that we can think of when we think of the ruling class. The bourgeois is in constant conflict with the proletarian. The petty bourgeois can take either side, but more often than not comes down against the proletarian. So as anarchists, it should be recognized that these people can at times be allies, but, ultimately they don't want to lose their privileged class any more than the capitalist class does. Regarding the second part of that question, if the small business was non-hierarchical, it was, I'm guessing you're talking about some type of workers' co-op. There's plenty of examples of that, how that person would be rewarded. He or she would share in the rewards, just like all the other people who, work hard to produce whatever it is they're producing. So let's move on to the next question.
Guimarquito's second question is, maybe my biggest problem with anarchy is justice. It's not like the bad people in the world who take advantage of others are going to disappear with a snap of fingers. I read in an anarchist site that justice would be based on trust rather than rules of law. Mr. 1001 Nights told me it would be custom, a more flexible and democratic way of law. First, isn't law already democratic? We do have a parliament and anybody can sign or start a petition. Second, wouldn't this take the neutrality out of justice and give way to mob mentality rules? Not that I'm too fond of libertarianism. Third, if justice is based on trust, wouldn't this mean anybody could take advantage and rule discreetly the people or violate their rights since the community trusts him? Because there are lots of people out there capable of doing it?
Regarding your second question, first off, no, the law isn't democratic. The laws, if you want to really think about them, are the views of the elite codified, if you will. And as J. Edgar Hoover famously put it, the primary function of law is order. Justice is a secondary consideration. The law is primarily concerned with order. And that order, as James Madison put it when he was forming this country of ours, was to protect the minority of the opulent. That's what law is about. And if you look into the statistics, 90 to 95% of all crimes are crimes against property. Moreover, if you start to look at the crimes against life and liberty, right, you'll find that a lot of those also have to do with property, right? It's somebody killing someone to get an insurance claim, or to get their property, or get their business, or, a lot of, we're talking the super majority of crime in this society is all based around property, this ridiculous notion of property. And so as anarchists, We say that, by eliminating private property, crime could be reduced by about 90% easily. I'm not quite clear on the other parts of your question, like where you say justice is based on trust. Wouldn't this mean anybody could take advantage and rule the people or violate their rights, since community trust? In an anarchist society, a society that's based, organized horizontally, power springs from below rather than above, I really think such fears would be unfounded. To go back to the question you asked, wouldn't this take the neutrality out of our justice system? I'd really urge you to look deeper into our justice system. It's anything but neutral. As Hoover pointed out, the primary purpose is to maintain the status quo. It's to maintain the privilege of a certain class of people. And you can see this time and time again. Like I said, 95% of what the police do is to protect property. When working people go on strike, the police show up. The police don't show up to protect working people from heinous bosses who are exploiting them, using them, working them to death. The police show up to protect those people who exploit us time and time again for centuries now. And if you go back and look at the origins of the police force, the police started in the South to protect slaves, that is, protect the property of slave owners, make sure the slaves didn't run away, etc. In the North, it was to protect the factories of, the rising capitalist class. That's where police started. Has nothing to do with justice. Has to do with protecting a certain minority of the opulent that needs protection from the rest of us.
Third, for the purposes of revolution and change, is the non-paying of taxes and other ways of resistance that affect others acceptable?
Regarding tax and other forms of resistance that affect others, are they acceptable? That's something you have to figure out for yourself. And hopefully you do that in a community of people who share your concerns and your desire to change the society. There are going to be legal repercussions to the things that you may want to do, civil disobedience, non-paying of taxes, and there are no formulaic answers to those things. That's something you've got to ask yourself. Are you willing to deal with the consequences? If you think it's important enough, maybe you are. Guimarquito, I appreciate the questions. I hope I answered them to some satisfaction. If relating to the crime issue, I definitely recommend checking out the Anarchist FAQ at InfoShop. They have a pretty great section on crime there. I'll have a link in the sidebar. And I'd really encourage you to look a little deeper into our justice system. It should make you sick. It's great that you have questions. I wouldn't want you to accept any, philosophy or ideology, without being skeptical and being critical. And hopefully you'll find a community wherever it is you live where you can hash out these questions, figure these things out, and figure out the best way to move forward. I wish you all the best. And this has been another edition of Buddhagem's Mailbox. Thanks again, everybody. Peace.